It's heard that the famous American pop singer Melanie Martinez has been murdered. Her fans say that she is still alive, but we have no understanding of what this means.
The question of what the hell is K-12 even is surprisingly hard to answer. K-12 is a visual concept album. It's a movie musical. It's a Disney Channel original that begrudgingly had 13 dance sequences shoved into it. It's ambitious, it's a complete failure. I've watched it over 8 times, and if I was selective with my wording, I could convince you it was an underappreciated piece of genius. Melanie Martinez made it free to watch on YouTube if you're curious and have a spare 90 minutes. It's certainly something. The meat of K-12 follows Crybaby, the protagonist of Melanie's previous album. Crybaby is a young girl from a broken home, and the film sees her being sent to the proverbial school, which stands as a general extended metaphor for society, but it's society in scare quotes. To describe the literal plot of K-12 with any more detail feels like it would be missing the point, because what happens in this school is, mainly, Melanie Martinez music videos. It's like The Wall. The story might be better conceptualized as connective tissue, brief tone poems of sorts that give breathing room between the songs. But there's also that final 20 minutes where the music takes a long break and the threadbare plot attempts to resolve itself, so perhaps it's just a movie musical that has too many songs in it. I'm sorry to say, this work isn't really conducive to anything but a brute force chronological analysis, like I'm Anthony Fantano or something. Trying to approach it with any broader framework has only led to me wasting even more time in previous drafts of the script. With that said, I should probably talk a little bit about how this film opens, because there's a lot of symbolic elements that get introduced here that I want to go over, if only so Melanie's fans can know I'm coming at this in good faith.
Wake up, you're gonna be late.
Some of the better character writing shows up here, actually. Crybaby's voiceover poetically brings into play this film's recurring themes of body image and gender performativity as she describes a nightmare she'd just woken up from.
I noticed that my front 2 teeth stayed, and the gap between them just kept getting larger and larger. How's that even possible? I know, right?
We're also introduced to Felipe, Crybaby's pet spider, and arachnophobia warning from now until this timestamp.
Felipe, what are you doing in there?
I love Felipe. He represents the strongest characterization that Crybaby gets in this movie. Like, there's the surface level element of the cute, scary girl who has a pet spider and gives him an exceedingly poncy name, but a spider is also a symbol of feminine, self-made creativity and ferocity. Well, tarantulas don't spin webs, but I think it tracks. Felipe should have stuck around. Let him hang out on her shoulder or something. It'd give her something to talk to. And the spider is off screen now, if you were looking away. We're also introduced to one of the main auditory motifs of this film's non-song original score, harps.
Wait.
I like this choice a lot. Harps are huge and imposing, yet elegant and distinctly feminine, both in appearance and sound.
The famous technique you can do on the harp is the glissando, and you can really go to town with these, and some composers really do. Unfortunately, the documents were destroyed in a fire.
I would have loved to hear more of them in the actual songs, but harps actually have a really difficult sound profile for mixing, so I understand why they'd be hard to fit into the squeaky clean mainstream pop landscape this film's music operates in. However, even in this very first scene, we hit a snag.
Maybe that should be my mantra as I step into what will inevitably be the worst years of my life. Off to a world in which girls are to only wear pink dresses and boys blue pants. Well,
Melanie Martinez has a critical flaw in her writing. It's a flaw of insecurity. She tenses up at the idea of writing her character to be naive, vulnerable, or victimized. This character, by all means, should not know that the school she's entering is a dystopian gender-fascist allegory smorgasbord. Melanie just wrote her to have a snarky platitude about it anyways. This is the one persistent tendency of Melanie's writing that proves to be this project's downfall over and over again. I'll get into it further when it comes up, but for now let's just talk about the first song. The first song on K-12, Wheels on the Bus, really just fucking throws you into it.
'Cause my eyes letting Dan put his hand up her skirt and she's got her hand down his pants.
This is just a thing she does. Melanie Martinez will, on occasion, just hit you with a line that curdles in your ears. This track has, like, 6. One of them is in the pre-chorus, so you hear it twice.
I know the driver sees it.
It's a short song, and there aren't strictly that many words here, and yet the level of detail is cringe-inducing. But when I watched this for the first time, I was picking up what she was putting down. Like, it's squirmy, and not in a flowery, poetic way. The words fall out like a blunt knife, and yet the tone of the song is distinctly wistful. I think it is a tonal mesh that actually serves the song and film greatly.
No one's watching us. Don't give a fuck. Wheels on the bus.
This might be my favorite hook from the track list. We have all this background noise. The intrusions of the leering bus driver is delivered with the same snarky monotony as the trees passing by outside. And as this comes to roost in the chorus, it starts to feel like the passive trauma of growing up is simply blowing by like the wind, an inevitable background hum going round and round like wheels on the bus with no one around to stop it. It's like the best possible thesis statement this film could have opened with. More is said about the experience of growing up in a hostile and backwards world with just this odd little poem than any of the big statements she shouts from the treetops over the course of the album. Wheels on the Bus also exemplifies another consistent feature of this album's beats: sound effects.
I'm just looking out the window and it's cold outside. There are two boys yelling behind.
Michael Keenan, the producer behind 12 of the tracks here, apparently likes to use sound effects. It's absolutely the most interesting thing about the otherwise perfectly boilerplate alt-pop instrumentation of this record. At its best, these sound effects act as a sort of rhythmic environmental noise that adds a surprising amount of dimension and texture to the mix. At its worst, we'll get to that. The sound effects in Wheels on the Bus are what you'd expect. Dogs and the noise of distant cars on the road, and it handily contributes to the wistful atmosphere of the track. However, I have to mention, there's this really unfortunate moment where the whining of the background dog layers with Melanie's already breathy voice, and it sounds like she's wheezing.
It's fucking boring.
Now that I've heard it, you all have to as well.
It's fucking boring.
And there's some important story stuff going on in the background. This is also where we're introduced to the main cast's supernatural abilities. Crybaby and her best friend Angelita have this thing where their eyes turn black and magical stuff happens. This other girl can do it too. We don't see her again for another 6 songs. All you need to know is that the main characters of this film are effectively omnipotent. It's not explained, and I'm not entirely sure if it needs to be, but we'll get more into it when the film does. Anyways, the bus crashes into a lake, but it's fine. As our 2 main characters arrive at school, we are introduced to dialogue.
I don't know why people are so scared of death.
I agree. It's just another part of life.
You start in the womb and you end in the tomb.
The dialogue in this movie is operating at a consistent level 0. It is exclusively on fire. There isn't a single spoken line in this film that doesn't immediately conjure an image of the screenplay page it was read from.
What even was that?
Scary.
It doesn't get any better. The whole movie is just like that. But anyways, Crybaby and Angelita need to get to class. Fortunately, they both know the number on the door. 222. First, hold on. So, the characters in this movie are supposed to be children, and yeah, it's weird. It's viscerally disquieting, even, that we're seeing a bunch of full-ass adults roleplay as kids in a film that throws sexual imagery around like it's candy. This is a point of criticism that's made often regarding Melanie's work, and it's not one that I agree with fully, at least not in principle. I think if you're lyrically stewing around themes of childhood trauma on being forced to grow up faster than you're able to, you're gonna run into some uncomfortable juxtapositions like this. I am fine with a little dramatic ABDL if that happens to be your muse. It's not an irreproachable subject, and I'd be a hypocrite if I said it was, so we're striking it from the records. Next song. Before this song starts, a random kid is forcefully removed from the classroom after refusing to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You hear that? Liberty and justice for all? That's bullshit.
I mention this because Melanie seems like she'd really like me too. Class Fight is a song about beating the shit out of a girl you're jealous of.
She was kissing Brandon, I got jelly.
No, really. That's another thing she does. Like, she'll just throw a piece of incredibly pointed imagery at your face and then continue forth like nothing happened. Far more often than not, it'll have no bearing on either the previous song or the one it introduces, and the characters involved never appear again. In this case, she conjures a black character specifically so he can reenact Take a Knee and be obliterated from the script, because Otherwise, there would be no mention of race anywhere in this movie, right? Like, the Trump rant that comes later certainly doesn't bring it up. So, Class Fight is unique among this track list. It tells a very literal story with a beginning, middle, and end. And it also has these very movie musical style breaks in between the verses. This prompts me to look at this particular audiovisual sequence from a more expressly narrative point of analysis. So, to start, what happens in Class Fight? Well, the lyrics tell a short and kind of somber tale about starting a fight with a classmate in order to win the affection of her boyfriend, and instead pushing him away. It's a functional, concise, and squirmy little nugget of a story. I like it. Not sure if I like the song surrounding it. The mix is unusually tinny and claustrophobic, especially when taken in terms of the generally squeaky clean production this album employs, but the lyrics work for me, and I like the mini Big Ben motif that plays in the background. Really sells the schoolyard atmosphere. So why did I tell you about the audio first? Because the film has fucking nothing to do with it. In the film, Crybaby is targeted by Kelly for seemingly no reason, and she acts in self-defense. This scene sets up the refrain from the original song, where Crybaby's parents interject and push her further towards violence by having Angelita just materialize a phone for Crybaby to call her parents. But the script is still in this mode where the focus is entirely on Crybaby's limp internal conflict about not wanting to use her omnipotence to defend herself.
I don't know, I just feel like I'd have an unfair advantage.
So, when the chorus is called back into existence and we're swamped in the violent irreverence of the song again, it's just wrong. Alright, how did this happen? Why, in the most explicitly movie musical inspired sequence, is the narrative completely at odds with the song's lyrics? If you want my honest answer, I think it's just that the lyrics for Class Fight represent the only point in the story where Crybaby is depicted in any sort of negative light. And I have the feeling that Melanie Martinez isn't adept enough at screenwriting to really handle that. When she's in songwriting mode, she can play the bully. You can see in this bootleg recording of the K-12 tour, which I watched, she has this cute Disney villain moment where she gradually ascends on stage and is bathed in envious green light, giving the audience a couple ain't I a stinker smirks towards the end. But as a screenwriter, she can't write a clearly flawed character that's interesting or sympathetic as of yet, so she compromises. The sequence climaxes with this big showdown, but there's no real stakes because Crybaby is omnipotent, and there isn't any character ambiguity either because Melanie Martinez retconned her own track. I must emphasize, this is the only sequence like this. It's the only one with these lengthy movie musical style breaks in between all the verses. When I got to this point in the movie, I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't even really know why. The connecting scene before this song has a lot of moving parts. After their scuffle, Crybaby and Kelly are nondescriptly detained. The consequences in this film are kind of fuzzy, and you learn to get used to it eventually. And just a second later, we hard cut to Ms. Harper.
You said you're dressing as a woman now.
Yes, I'm transitioning.
We enter Ms. Harper's story in media res. She's just come out to her boss, and we watch her get discriminated against and then fired.
I love my job, and I'd really like to stay, but I need to be my most authentic self. I am a woman.
A woman.
Another fun fact about Ms. Harper, she never appears again. This is the last time we see her.
Mr. Harper, you're fired.
Bye, Queen. I heard within some fandom mutterings that Ms. Harper was originally meant to have a much larger role in the film, but budget cuts forced her out. I find this hard to believe. Like, we haven't seen them all yet, but K-12 has a total of 5 indistinguishable main characters by the end. Any one of them ripe to be axed from the script to make room for the single remaining trans character in your film. You could have at least been around, you know? Like, delete Angelita, merge her with Fleur or something. Fucking just let Felipe be her only friend at the start, and we'd be spared so much useless screen time. As she stands, Ms. Harper contributes less than nothing to K-12. She may as well not exist, but Melanie Martinez can't erase her completely because this scene of her getting fired is the only proof that trans issues are even in this film's periphery. Leaving her out and just tweeting trans rights would have been a less transparent vie for brownie points. All this inspires Crybaby to experience a psychic vision of Ms. Harper, and track 3, The Principal, begins. The Principal is notable for being a fucking banger.
I've tried to make you listen, but you won't. It's your prescription pills and online fight.
God, the production on this song is fantastic. Like, on a purely sonic level, I'm feeling this to heaven and back. The style is your average low-key down-tempo pop tune, sharp and minimal percussion, mallet-like chord stabs, and a rubbery sub-bass. But there is tremendous dimension and space to this mix. It has what's possibly the most effective use of sound effects on the album, those typewriter taps joining the clicks and wood-blockish drum hits in the high range, some measures ending with a tasteful ding in your right ear. Those main sharp mallets are joined by several buried bell tones in the back of the mix, barely audible but still contributing to the searingly hot space of the track. I'm not used to pop songs having this kind of epic range and volume with their instrumentation, and when the pre-chorus hits and those saucy little string slinks are accentuating the end of each measure like punctuation, I ascend a little. It's spacious, it's sharp, it's groovy, everything's working together. Lyrically, she wanted to write about Donald Trump, but she didn't want to be sued, so now he's the principal. It's kind of weak. Like, Melanie Martinez can't really do pure venom. As a Trump rant, the principal is pretty toothless, merely circling around the same vague accusations of greed, with the occasional mention of hurt or pain, and a couple bewilderingly tepid burns like, "You're fucking ugly, and you shouldn't even be on the sidelines." Wow, I can't believe you would say that. At this point, the literal ramifications for the song's lyrics within the film's universe are completely cast aside. Crybaby doesn't know the principal, and he doesn't know her. The music video takes place in a separate plane of reality, which is implied to be inside the principal's mind. And it's a nice set piece. It's got some really eye-catching dance choreography. And I particularly like the hairstyle for this one. This spunky, tattered rag that works well with the idea of just putting her in a dress frame instead of a full dress. But it's basically just a music video that we get to see in the middle of this film. This is the part where you're punished for trying to make sense of the story and world after the first two tracks set you up to think this was a musical. But there's still a lot to talk about. You'll see. Show and Tell barely has an introduction. Crybaby walks into a classroom, the students all look at her, and the song just kind of starts. Show and Tell is a song about Melanie Martinez's stan armies.
You pull me by my hair, so I don't go nowhere. Tell me you love me, but you treat me like I'm never there.
She's depicted being puppeteered on a stage before a cloying crowd of children, only for them to recoil in disgust when she's thrown out into the middle of the room with her gut spilling out. The artifice being preferable to the person, the surface-level scar on her arm being a more appealing picture than her real self in a wreckage on the floor. I actually quite like this shot of the doll flying over the crowd. There's a nice bit of arm acting as they all collectively lose the excited fervor of scenes past. I'm not sure what to take from the choice to have her real self be a doll while the coded fake self is human, but it's interesting. So, I personally believe that every pop star is entitled to at least one song where they whinge about their audience, but how did Show and Tell make the cut for this particular project? The last song was already starting to show a bit of a detachment from the film's universe, but at this point, Crybaby has been completely excised from the picture. For all the talk of creating a character apart from herself, going so far as to airbrush her tattoos out to sell the distinction, it feels like Crybaby has been repossessed by Melanie Martinez.
There are strangers taking pictures of me when I ask no more.
I don't even hate the song. Like, the hook isn't nearly as sharp as the principal's. I personally have a strong distaste for chord loops that both begin and end on the root, but its production is just as good. There's a similarly tasteful use of sound effects here, winding clockwork sparkling in the upper range.
Why is it so hard to see? If I cut myself, I would bleed.
However, there's something kind of subtly off about the songwriting for me here. And unfortunately, I feel that in order to explain how it's slightly off, I have to talk about a separate example where it's really off so we can better understand the concepts I'm trying to build. It's time for another mini essay. Pop 101 by Marianas Trench is the worst fucking thing I've ever heard in my life.
Pop Music 101, some simple instructions.
It's one of those early 2010s satirical pop songs. You know the ones. I'm pretty sure they were all bad.
To market this song to young, impressionable, and insecure teenage girls.
Bo Burnham might be an alright lyricist, but honey, you can't make fun of pop music with dollar store mixing. I'm sorry.
Repeat stuff, repeat stuff, repeat stuff, repeat stuff.
Marianas Trench actually has teeth in the game, though. He wrote Call Me Maybe, and Pop 101 definitely sounds convincingly like a pop song as a result, which is more than can be said for most of these satirists, but I really just keep finding new things to hate about this track. None of the lines land. There are no salient points or observations anywhere in the song. The first verse is the closest the songwriting comes to being good. Like, there's always going to be a part of my brain that lights up when the guy sings about the thing that I'm already hearing in the song. The hallelujah effect.
Minor chord tensions grow, fade in the bass like so. Now with momentum, go stop and bring the beat back.
There's also, however, some dubious moments.
The chords are 1, 4, 6, 4. Now I'm talking familiar. Harmony in thirds, not fourths. We'll take you into the pre-chorus.
First, he rhymes for with familiar, which is corny but not unforgivable. But he follows that with harmony in thirds, not fourths, which, well, it's incredibly awkward, but it also handily bludgeons the fiction of this being some kind of sung manual. Like, was someone coming into the studio with Debussy harmonies and he had to set them right? I kid. It's unfair of me to nitpick a line that is transparently just a syllable stuffing in service of the rhyme scheme, which at this point consists of itself, familiar, and chorus. What? Why? But I'm not just here to make pithy criticisms about a song I don't like. I have a theory of songwriting I'm trying to build. Before we get into the disaster that is Pop 101's second verse, let's talk about limericks. A limerick is a brief poetic form defined entirely by a specific schema of rhyme and rhythm. We got 2 opening lines that fall under rhyme A, a middle course of 2 shorter lines that fall under rhyme B, and 1 more for rhyme A to stick the landing. There's a billion of these. Apparently we haven't gotten tired of them since the 1800s. It makes sense. It's a catchy rhythm. It's fun to say. It would be fun to play on the drums. I chose a dirty one as an example because, honestly, a PG-rated limerick has the same utility as mild salsa. Now, we all must agree, the worst limericks are the ones where adjacent regions form a single broken sentence, like the second line continuing directly into the alternatively metered third and fourth lines, or the final line acting as the second half of the penultimate line. And if I may hazard a guess, this comes across as lackluster because it decouples the rhetorical meter from the poetic meter. We end up with these sentence fragments that we must still awkwardly emphasize to have it come out of our mouths in a way that's fun and musical. And the sing-songish tone contrasting with the hideously profane language is supposed to be the entire joke. When he couldn't get these, he lived on the cheese, he scraped from his cock with his nails. Like, it sucks, right? Let's go back to Woman Named Alice. If you look, every line is its own little nugget of information. The rapid third and fourth lines aren't just a single sentence with an appropriately scanning break you'd naturally place in the middle. It's a statement followed by an elaboration. They found her vagina in South Carolina. Now, whatever lesson you want to take from this is fine by me. This is simply my first example of a way in which the rhetorical pace of your lyrics can matter just as much as the rhythms and the rhymes. So, the second verse of Pop 101 is generally on life support.
Guitar and strings like these to sound like black-eyed peas. This one's a filter swing. This one's a matching heat.
Mr. Trench abandons the jokes about pop songwriting and just gives us rapid-fire dated references to other pop music. Like, this came out in 2014. You can't be referencing I Got a Feeling in a post-That Power world. I digress. The real killing blow to this verse is the completely dysregulated rhetorical meter. The Imogen Heap bit is the closest thing this verse has to a decisive punchline, and I feel like it wouldn't have been so hard to continue this cute little long, short structure for the rest of the verse, so there's some level of rhythmic anticipation that can be served or subverted for later punchlines. But That's not what happens.
Hipster music on cassette, but you probably don't know that yet. 808s.
Hipster music on cassette is, for one, not a particularly biting reference to make in the middle of this homage to glitzy radio pop, and it sticks out among the other jokes for not having any special instrumentation change to accompany it. And right after this comes just 808s, a punchline so momentous that we get a full 2 bars of dead fucking air to let it simmer. But that's nothing compared to the next joke, an extended Mumford & Sons reference that lasts 8 entire measures. The longest 8 measures I have ever experienced.
Heartfelt pop anthems from Mumford and his sons. Gang vocals, here we come. I'm thinking
Okay, that's enough. This is what I mean by rhetorical meter, because it's not like there's anything technically wrong with the delivery or the scanning of the lyrics. It looks and sounds convincingly like a pop song, but the rate and rhythm of which we are delivered new ideas is something that simply wasn't considered here. That's not even mentioning the chorus, which is essentially just one joke listing off a bunch of pop keywords as slowly as possible, or the bridge, which is an equally sluggish reference to We Can't Stop by Miley Cyrus. There's even a rap verse, because those were hot at the time, but Mr. Trench spends an equal amount of time on the joke introducing the rapper as he allots for the rap itself, which ends up so short that it passes by in a breath.
Give him a classic like get.
This is normally the part where I'd share a few positive thoughts as consolation, but I genuinely have none. All this to say, the rhetorical meter of show and tell is just very slightly off.
Show and tell. I'm on display for all you fuckers to see.
The chorus of this track is a great lumbering thumb. It goes slowly and takes up a lot of space in an already short song. The rhetorical form of it is established right away, the mantric shout of the title and a more elaborate follow-through. This is reinforced on the following lines. It's simple but effective. However, this pattern is broken on the final line.
Unless you fucked every authority.
This line bugs me a lot. Like, it's a fine sentiment. She's sarcastically putting on blast the ways in which successful women are accused of sleeping their way to the top. But this is a complete breakneck turn in terms of the subject matter. Like, every other line in the chorus is simply laying the cards on the table, yet the fourth line screams in from the sidelines as its own tiny manifesto unto itself. It also breaks the pattern of the first 3 syllables acting as mantric call, with the remaining melodic line being the response. It's a contiguous sentence. It's sung with the exact same pattern of melodic emphasis, even as the rhetoric is no longer serving it. And maybe this is a nitpick, but this track is already so short. This chorus is repeated 3 times, and with the pre-chorus slapped on top of that, the verses are reduced to bare slivers. The second verse almost seems to be introducing a level of vulnerability to the resentful posturing, fear of suddenly losing the attention she's received if she speaks out about the ways in which she feels devalued as an artist. It could be an adequate second face for the track, but unfortunately, the pre-chorus takes over and there suddenly aren't any new words left in the song.
Why is it so hard to see?
The tempo is slow and methodical. We get a long time to sit with this misshapen chorus as it gurgles past our ears each time, and that final pithy observation, incessantly poking you in the side of your torso, gets harder and harder to take as the track goes on. I don't like it. Yeah, that was all for track 4. Sorry. I think the rest of these parts will be shorter. I don't know. For now, I just want to bring your attention to this particular hairstyle that Angelita's got on. Just look at it. Take it in. Are you finished? I disagree. Look at it more. Really internalize the process of sticking all those hairpins in there, only to achieve the effect of exactly one piece of her hair being gelled and laminated. Imagine that being on your head. Imagine touching it. Imagine putting it in your mouth. Nurse's Office is another number with barely any setup. Angelita does some magic to turn Crybaby back into a human, and then these guys show up. That sneeze is on the album too. Throughout this whole track, we are treated to sniffles, coughs, and other various mouth noises. We're just gonna have to deal with that.
Don't cut me, punch.
The video portion of Nurse's Office is almost complete nonsense, about as abstract as the film gets. All we get here is formless choreography loosely themed around the track's namesake. Like, those sure are some nurses. It's unclear what exactly is happening to our main characters in the text, like what state of peril they're in even. We're just watching a music video now. I had to go out and read the lyrics to this track on their own in order to find out that it's actually a song about bullying.
Can I sit right there? This bitch behind me is cutting my hair. No.
It's a brief little story about a kid who fakes physical illnesses so she can be sent to the nurse's office and gain respite from her abuse. She's employing a little dramatic irony here, turning her usual snarky delivery on its head, giving the impression that this protagonist believes they've pulled some magnificent heist while we in the audience understand that she really is sick, but in a way that's invisible to those around her, and possibly herself. Nurse's Office is the best written song in the track list, I think. Like, the scope is narrow enough to be covered with a 3-minute pop song where most of the lyrics are repeated. It doesn't feel like a compromise in the same way it does when she's floundering around trying to write an incisive Trump dunk in the same format. But, Melanie, both of us know that "this bitch behind me is cutting my hair" wasn't referring to one of the nurses.
This bitch behind me is cutting my hair. No.
If anything, the nurse in this song is a long-awaited reprieve from the bullying that the protagonist is living with. Perhaps a flawed reprieve, a reprieve unaware of the fundamental issue, but a reprieve that is still described by the lyrics as home. And like, imagine being me, watching this for the first time, with Wheels on the Bus still fresh in my memory. In that track, every line has literal roots and consequences in the text, even if it's small. Jason's got his ass on the glass, and I hate him, driver hit a bump fast. It's still got the limitations of a pop song, but it's got its own life within the film. Every track since then has shed more and more of that life, the literal core of the music storytelling slowly degenerating until now, where we might as well not be watching a film anymore. I can't describe the abject betrayal that I was feeling by this point. Like, I love movie musicals, I love visual albums, but this is like starting at West Side Story and ending at Whack World. Anyways, then this bitch shows up. What?
Wait, why are you leaving us here?
I'm sorry, who?
Continue on and live your truth.
Why does she sound like that? Alright, so without warning, Crybaby's guardian spirit Lilith arrives from another dimension and makes short work of the danger our main characters are in. That floaty, indistinct, delicately choreographed danger, and I just don't know what's happening anymore.
You've had many bodies before this, and you'll continue to have more. You're immortal.
But we're exhausted.
We don't want to feel this anymore.
One question. Feel what? What are you feeling? This film hasn't had any form of perceivable stakes for the past 3 songs. How is it brave enough to simply juice itself up and try again? After Lilith just fucks off and leaves them behind, we get a snarky exchange where Angelita says she'll be late for class, and Crybaby is just like,
Who cares at this point?
True.
I must emphasize, what the fuck is going on? What was going on during that choreographed dance number, diegetically? How am I supposed to read the events of this story? I swear, this wouldn't be cause for a flustered film critic rant if it was just a formless series of music videos, but it's a formless series of music videos that will occasionally lift your head up from the baptismal font and tell you that the stakes are very clear, actually. I feel like I'm fucking high. Drama Club opens with what has to be my favorite prelude skit in the entire film.
All right, everyone. Please turn to your scripts and find the roles to which you've been assigned.
Is it possible to get assigned a different role? Like a film director or the president of the United States?
Harlot, perhaps?
Oh, she is not.
Your kind are too soft and too sensitive to handle a man's job.
Having a larger capacity to feel and express emotion are one of the many qualities that make us superior to your kind.
Firstly, I just think it's incredibly funny how Melanie Martinez is serving us this female brain supremacy bullshit 3 songs after having her one trans character taken out back and shot. Secondly, this song, it's not about gender roles.
Wanna be an actress.
sign up for your drama club, meaning the societal roles imposed on different genders, right?
Yeah, I thought that too. Like, she carries on from the dude's jeering accusations of being too soft and sensitive and quotes it in the first line. She's on stage performing visions of domestic femininity. She fucking melts a guy's face off with her prop iron, which symbolically suggests that she's taken this vision of femininity and utilized it as a source of power for herself. The titular drama club could very easily be read as the theater of gender performativity. But no, it's more celebrity bullshit.
You're overanalyzing every word I say. There's a whole world out there. You're living a play.
She means drama as in fandom drama, snooty critics throwing accusations of inauthenticity, entitled fans reading into her personal life based on her every word. The script she alludes to on the second verse is the script of respectability towards her fan base, not the script of gender roles. It's made worse by the fact that this track actually has some of the most thoughtful and detailed choreography in the whole production, just in service of the wrong idea. Just look at this graceful and humorous reenactment of a proposal scene that she's doing. And this right here is probably my favorite combined audiovisual moment in the whole film.
You're living a play. Fuck your auditorium. I think it's pretty boring and I never signed up.
Just totally selling the transition from florid mid-range to a stark long-range, the way her body flows into that big change in the instrumentation, then accentuating both the cold snap and the two sub-hits that follow with her movements. And this leads to the whole scene with her ironing clothes and having an altercation with her pretend husband, as if we're witnessing an entire mini-narrative of standard heterosexual marriage and divorce unfold on this artificial stage. It's delicate, detailed, funny, and the whole time, Melanie Martinez is breathing celebrity bullshit into both of your ears.
Never signed up for your drama, for your drama, for your drama club.
And I have to mention, because this is my specialty, the production is also, like, noticeably awful. Michael Keenan stepped out for this one, and the producers in his place put this putrid chorusing effect on her voice for the hook, elbowing her already quite sibilant vocal tone outwards and splashing it all over the high end. It's like they put a re-esser on it. But then the best part happens. We get this middle eight after Crybaby irons the dude, where she turns to the audience like,
You're being brainwashed.
What is this? What is she doing?
She then conjures a psychic blast that wakes the audience up from their gormless gaze and inspires them instantly to revolt against the school faculty. And while this is happening, the chorus of the song starts playing again.
Never signed up for your drama, for your drama, for your drama.
She's still singing about celebrity bullshit. Like, that's still just happening on the periphery while we watch the student body rush into Donald Trump's office by Crybaby's hand and collectively fucking dismember him.
Never signed up for your drama, for your drama.
Melanie, buddy, sweetums, what were you trying to do? Before Strawberry Shortcake starts, we get the longest skit in a while.
Wanna go play tennis? Ooh, yeah.
The dismemberment of our POTUS analog is something that should strike us as a major plot beat, but it doesn't really change anything. We don't even get a hint of the resulting consequences for another two songs. The girls certainly seem pretty at ease, but the characters in this film react with vaguely unsettled bemusement to everything.
What even was that?
Scary.
So this bit about urethras isn't actually out of line. It could have happened at any point in this movie.
You didn't know you had a butthole?
Side note, can I just say how much I love these little retro tennis outfits? They spontaneously manifest for this scene only. Like, they just appear between cuts and evaporate just as fast. They aren't even used in any dance choreography, but they are absolutely my favorite costume in this film. They look like adorable little cupcakes. The three girls all got their own color. Crybaby is in pink for this scene, even though the opening made a point of her turning her uniform purple in defiance of the gender binary. Anyways, this is Celeste. You might remember that she was smoking a blunt on the bus back in track 1. I didn't skip over her introduction. I think it got cut. She's just here now. Crybaby blows some bubbles while they're talking about urethras and makes the ball float away, where it then lands at the feet of a new character. Then the next song just kind of starts. Now this is going to sound strange, but I think this is actually where the plot begins. Like, The bubble motif is the closest thing this film has to an arc, and this particular boy gets to show up again later. I'm not going to mince words. Strawberry Shortcake is the worst track so far, among the worst in the album. I mean, it was already fighting an uphill battle. If you couldn't tell from the combination of this avatar and this voice, I'm not on board with this kind of social gender essentialist, society makes boys grow up bad and horny feminism. Feminists in the mid-2010s spoke of male socialization as if it were an original sin, something unconsciously bestowed onto us, and then acted surprised when TERFs appropriated this idea word for word to lampoon trans women for their supposed male upbringing. I was not socialized male. I was socialized as a fucking dog. But this is a video about songwriting, so I'm gonna move on. A far more pressing issue is that the hook of this track is a melodic stillbirth.
It's my fault, 'cause I put icing on top. Now the boys wanna taste of the strawberry shortcake.
And it's weird, because Melanie's melodic intuition is usually downright pristine. The scanning of her lyrics often suffers a lot, but her vocal melodies divorced from that are the one consistent positive feature of her work. Here, however, it almost sounds like she didn't know where the chord changes fall. The first, "It's My Fault," is fine. She's doing a fun little relative major kind of thing, where she's outlining a major triad that acts as a partial minor seventh in the song's key. But then she just does it again. The chords drop one whole step down to the flat 7, leaving the melody trailing along in a key that is now 1/4 above where the harmony is. I could talk for a long while about polytonality in pop songwriting, but the short version is that Melanie Martinez began this hook with the instrumental harmonically next door to her, and then it moved to the dullest, most awkward key possible. Read Vincent Persichetti. I don't know how this happened. Melanie seems to be acting so independently of the chord changes that I honestly think she might have written these lyrics to a version of the song where the chords are all the same length instead of some of them coming early. Like, there's no emphasis whatsoever. Both of the syncopated chord changes hit her in the middle of her phrases. It really sounds like she got harmonically tripped. Actually, let's see.
It's my fault, 'cause I put icing on top. Now the boys wanna taste of the strawberry shortcake.
Look, maybe I'm reaching, but that version turned the titular line into what sounds like a very deliberate anticipation note for the last chord change.
Strawberry shortcake.
That had to have been what the demo sounded like, right? Was this a Michael Keenan problem? This track has a couple of Michael Keenan problems now that I mention it. Like, the mix isn't bad, it's just kind of rubbery and stuffy. The percussion on this album is generally pretty understated, but here it feels like the kick is the only part that managed to escape the surrounding pop soup.
Sure that my legs are shiny.
The sound effect of choice is various plasticky shuffles and the occasional gym whistle, evoking body care and self-image with physical education as a backdrop, the time at school where one is most exposed. I appreciate it thematically, but these intimately recorded sounds, combined with the muffled, blumbering drums, creates the sensation that the entire track is being emitted from the inside of a shampoo bottle. I am also simply not a fan of those faint, plain square wave pads buzzing way in the back. I disagree with it. It sounds like someone's playing an omnichord on the ceiling. But let's not get distracted. This track is also very illuminating as to Melanie's emotional weaknesses as a songwriter. Like, she probably should have known the job set out for her with these opening lines.
Feeling unsure of my naked body. Stand back, watch it taking shape.
This isn't just a statement piece, it's a character study. It's written from the point of view of a young girl in the throes of body image issues, her confusion cruelly exacerbated by those around her. She is objectified, the first hints of her developing body rendered both sacred and obscene. Crybaby is shown with bare, nippleless breasts. This is doll imagery, the form without the function, and the aesthetic symmetry almost makes me forgive the bog-standard Barbie as unachievable standard for young girls pop feminism observation that she makes in the following line. The problem, as I've alluded to, is that Melanie Martinez is allergic to being perceived as vulnerable, which is surprising considering the film is couched so deeply in soft and submissive feminine aesthetics, and she's been open about her aim to present softness as a superpower with the whole omnipotent fallen angel Lolita deal. But Crybaby isn't allowed to be excited for school and then discover that it's oppressive and traumatic. She has to premonish that these will inevitably be the worst years of her life. She can't be passively subject to the chaos of growing up. She has to clap back against it. My favorite moment of lyric writing on this album, Nurse's Office, is only so strong because it makes sense for this particular character to have a vulnerability allergy, faking physical illnesses as a vie for attention without being able to acknowledge the true sickness within. And on Strawberry Shortcake, again, Melanie can't fucking help herself.
Got boys acting like they ain't seen skin before.
In this song, written from the point of view of a young gaslit girl with body image issues, she interjects multiple times with snarky observations that may as well be coming from her mom. She is, somehow, both a naive victim and an omniscient observer with perfect foresight on the devices being used against her. And it's not for a lack of effort. The second pre-chorus is the most evocative set of lines here. It shows a hint of desperation, her need to be socially participatory, tangling inwards with her self-perception. But it comes directly after this.
'Cause it's how I look and not what I think.
This isn't the same character. The girl in the second pre-chorus isn't aware of this nuance, and yet one line earlier she was quipping from the sidelines about how shallow her classmates are. And once again, at the bridge, this girl is banished in favor of spelling out the moral statement letter by letter.
Just teach him to keep it in his pants.
This could have potentially represented a turning point, a moment of growth for the song's protagonist. That is, if it hadn't been nesting in this exact spot for its entire runtime. But for the record, there's far worse consequences of this lack of emotional range coming up. The video portion is nice, I guess. Like, I really enjoy this pool set. It really plays nice with the digital, low-contrast music video style color grade this film has. Nothing's actually happening, it's just 3 different set pieces playing in parallel with zero diegetic meaning for the characters. But after this, the music starts to sort of exist within the film again. We are almost out of the visual album portion of K-12. Thanks for sticking with it. So after the song's over, we hard cut to some kind of liminal space where Crybaby is conversing with that angel from before, and...
What's wrong, my dear?
I just don't want to do this anymore. Don't want to feel this pain, and I don't want to be here on Earth.
The greatest power you will hold is that of acceptance. Any storm you face will transform itself into a crystalline rainbow in divine timing.
Hold on. Play that scene at the end of Nurse's Office again.
We don't want to feel this anymore.
We must feel the physical pain of this world, because the only way that we can truly learn is through experience.
Guys, I think I see what she's trying to do here. A common point of critique that people levy at this film is that the main character's superpowers have no explained limits or rules, and because of this, it's difficult to buy into any of the stakes that the film puts into place. And yeah, it's a little extremely aggravating when we have this whole skit about how Angelita is on her period and they can't find any tampons, and she materializes a whole ass sweater to cover up her bloodstain without considering to manifest a fucking tampon. Side note, I love this random teacher who walks in and calls Crybaby a bitch.
Get back to class, you little bitch.
And if you're wondering why she just randomly acts extremely mean for no reason, it's because Crybaby stole her tampon that she kept in her shirt pocket, and this scene of her looking for one in the stall is her comeuppance. Like, Melanie really just manifested a character to be a heel and be punished immediately like a bratty sub in a dubious roleplay. Anyways, tangent over. After Lilith tells Crybaby and Angelita that they must feel the physical pain of this world, I think we're supposed to see this superpower plot hole as part of the point. They're omnipotent, and yet they are unable to see a way out. They make their school bus fly into the air, but they can only think to land it at its rightful destination. They must live amongst the common man, feel the pain and sin of this world, in order to even understand what it would mean to be liberated from it. So, like, is Crybaby Jesus? Maybe. Let's put a pin in that for now. Lunchbox Friends is my favorite song on this album.
He said, hey girl, will you sit with me? Table in the back, cafeteria seat. We could be friends if you want to be.
Yeah, that sounds right. It's either this or the principal. The instrumentation is just so purposeful and delicate. I love the lush piano slinking in the background of the verses, the spicy sharp Hammond outlining the rhythm in the bass, the way the piano is replaced with a sparkling Rhodes for the chorus, playing the same thing but still serving a sense of escalation through timbre alone. Melanie also indulges a little more in her knack for detail. The way she inhabits Kelly with this first verse is irresistible.
After lunch we can walk to class, talk about the boys who we want to smash.
It's the most genuinely fun and breezy ditty on this project, easily. I love the choreography that pops up later on, too. It's a bit more minimal and small scale than the rest of this film, but it's still sweet and endearing. At the end, there's a delightful wordless recruitment of a new friend for the group, and it's just cute, you know? And the sound effect of choice for this track is someone stubbing their toe in another room.
Oh, they talk shit though.
Now, there's two layers to the lyrics of Lunchbox Friends. One is the literal reading. It's a song about Crybaby denying the recruitment of the superficial plastic folks in favor of a friendship that is unconditional and based on common understanding. It's maybe a little judgmental and Mean Girls-ish, but it works narratively, and we finally have things that happen both on screen and in the music. It's like we've almost returned again to that movie musical tone of the first couple of songs. And then you read a little deeper and find out that it's actually just more celebrity bullshit.
The hassle, the fighting, they all wanna bite of me. Photos, more photos, and gossip about hoes that they don't know.
I want this to just be a catchy, catty Mean Girls track. I love it as a catty, catchy Mean Girls track, but once again, Melanie can't help but jut herself into Crybaby's mouth.
When on TV, people have high expectations of me. Wanna be my best friend and judge me if I smoke a little weed.
And suddenly, it gets a lot worse. Like, at least with Show and Tell, she was implicating her audience. She's on display for all you fuckers to see. Lunchbox Friends is operating in the same lane, but it's been defanged. She gives an out. She offers an alternative to being a fake fan. Come to my house, let's die together.
Come to my house, let's die together. Friendship that will last forever.
Melanie, if by some miracle you made it this far into the video, please reconsider. Anyways, after the song is over, Crybaby introduces her new friend, Magnolia, to the rest of her friend group. I like Magnolia. She doesn't have many lines, but she's the first named character that doesn't feel like an exact clone of Crybaby. Unfortunately, the focus can't remain on her for long. We immediately have a fifth friend to introduce. They happen to notice one of the blonde wigs doing telekinesis out in the fucking open, which means she's part of their superpowered in-group. However, in order to separate her from the blonde wigs, they have to make a distraction.
Food fight, anyone? I like this girl.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to talk about this. You just saw Celeste enthusiastically co-sign Magnolia's idea to cause a ruckus via a food fight. Look at her here. She's so gassed over this food fight. It's clear as day. When Crybaby hesitates for a second, she lurches forward in aggravated anticipation, but as soon as it starts, and they're all under the table, Celeste is all,
Not with this hair, I just had wash day.
Melanie, these characters already have, like, 15 lines to pass around between them. They're spread so thin. Is it too much to ask that those lines are consistent on a character-by-character basis? Who the hell is Celeste? She just appeared out of nowhere, and I can't even trust her opinion on food fights. Okay, but let's think this through. Maybe Celeste is a go-getter who will engender chaos if it's the right thing to do. But she's especially protective of her hair. That's empowering, I'd imagine. This read isn't based on nothing either. Like, there was that scene 7 songs ago where the blue guy was about to touch her hair, so she inflated his hands to make them big and round. This could even be read as a decently coherent statement on the systemic policing.
So barbaric. If you don't put that floor spaghetti down.
Melanie, no! Why can't Magnolia pick up the floor spaghetti? What's your fucking deal, Celeste? I thought you liked this girl. Just let her pick up the fucking floor spaghetti! Orange juice is the part where my brain stops working. Upon approaching this girl, Fleur, Crybaby discovers that she is bulimic. That's what the song is about. It's a big body positivity anthem.
Your body is perfectly perfect. Everyone wants what the other one's working.
The writing is almost painfully trite. Like, you can probably already imagine the rest of the platitudes she throws at you over the course of the track. And the blunt insistence of it starts to come off as cloying. The song honestly reads as Melanie Martinez drunk texting you like, "No, babe, don't develop an eating disorder. You're so sexy. Uh-huh."
Stuff in the issue. The way you look is not an issue. The issue is your issue.
But the more interesting thing to note is the choice of metaphor. Oranges, spread numerously across what is admittedly a very refreshing change of scenery, given idyllic significance by the choreography. What's going on there? Well, to me at least, the oranges are presented as the pervasive specter of ideal femininity. Kelly appears as a ghost, force-feeding this ideal directly into the head of Fleur, who exists resting upon a bountiful tree in an endless orchard. Crybaby and her dance group are dressed up to suggest that we've found this mind in a state of decay. It's beautiful, and yet it is shown to be a wasteland. And the orange juice symbolizes vomit. This is the most tragic failure of imagery that I've ever laid my eyes on. It's the contrast, I think, between the florid and detached metaphorical orange orchard motif to the totally excruciatingly direct representation of the juice.
You turn oranges to orange juice, into there and spit it out of you.
You turn oranges, societal expectations of femininity and the like, into orange juice. Vomit. Like, if you think about it, when you upchuck, it's sort of like you juiced up your food. I have to assume there's some cultural connotation that I'm missing, one that perhaps no one on her Genius page or FanWiki remembered to mention, even though they had no trouble handling the your favorite candy's cotton double entendre on Sippy Cup. Is orange juice a bulimia thing? I tried looking it up, results were inconclusive. But even if that's true, whatever reference is being made here would still pale in comparison to the far more direct aesthetic call we're being shown, that of literal oranges becoming orange. Why? It's such a transparently syrupy and romantic description of bulimic vomiting. I honestly find it insipid. Ed Sheeran got some criticism for describing a coke-addicted homeless woman as an angel covered in white for his wedding-ready folk pop, but he also had the decency to not have the entire song be different variations of the crumbling like pastries line, and shake a little bit of powdered sugar on that lady for the last chorus to really make sure you get it. Orange juice is, I guess, an improvement over the strangely judgmental and cruel tone she gave the subject on Sippy Cup and Mrs. Potato Head, but it's still really hard to sit through. This isn't helped by the fact that there are straight up no fat people in this movie anywhere. Like, of course an eating disorder can befall anyone regardless of body type, but doesn't that kinda blow a hole in the song's message anyways? This world still enforces a certain weight. What is the difference, functionally, between this indulgent, hyper-feminine production and the teen magazines that Kelly uses to infect Fleur? Other notes. The song sounds gross, like, just on an auditory level. The sound effect of choice is running faucets and other wet, grimy textures, which only serve to accentuate the moistened, cloying tone of the song. E-A-E-A-O-J is among the worst series of syllables I've heard come out of a singer's mouth. The final chorus is missing the bass for some reason. There was this horrifying moment for me during the bit where they trade eyes, where I thought they'd represent Fleur's body dysmorphia by putting her in a fat suit, and I can't tell you how thankful I am that they didn't go that route. After the song is done, we get what is probably the most glaring manifestation of Melanie's weaknesses as a screenwriter so far.
I know it seems impossible, but try not to expect shallow people to love you. They don't even have the capacity to understand how amazing you are. We all have to learn how to love ourselves without the approval of others.
I know. It's just extremely overwhelming when everyone around you is making you feel like you aren't good enough. As if you're not deserving of the same kind of love if you're different.
Everyone's deserving of love. Everyone.
Crybaby monologues some platitudes at Fleur, and Fleur just continues Crybaby's monologue for her, right? Like, aside from a few words near the beginning of her line, they may as well be reading from the same block of text. There's only one character in this scene.
Like, for example, Fleur, I wrote Fleur to be a Pisces, and the girl that I casted for Fleur is a Pisces. So it's like things like that that are just so serendipitous and magical.
When Crybaby returns to the cafeteria with Fleur, the food fight is still going, but it's about to get cut off.
It's Leo. It's the principal's son. Priscilla's crazy sister.
I think I see what she's trying to do here. Like, It's supposed to be the cruel punchline to the setup of the principal being dismembered. You off the guy at the top, there's another pretty face that'll step right into the hole you left. But that was 3 songs ago. When the principal got taken out of the picture, there was barely any reaction from the characters who did it. No excitement, nothing that could later be turned to disappointment that things haven't really changed. It may as well not have happened. And not because the system is undeterred by anything but direct action, but because Melanie couldn't account for it as it occurred. Detention is a song that I frequently forget exists. Not just because it's forgettable, it's just that my brain is pretty much entirely checked out by this point. E-A-E-A-O-J is still echoing in my head incessantly. Now that I'm actually laying this film out bit by bit and judging everything closely, I think it's one of the better written songs on the album. I mean, except for this part.
You're too busy seeking selfish wishes, look at how I'm feeling.
You're too busy seeking selfish wishes, don't care how I'm What is the opposite of lyrics flowing off the tongue? It's another track that I think is served well by being smaller in scope, taking a very intimate and specific sample of an emotional experience I'm sure Melanie is familiar with. It details the precise tension of feeling sad, stressed, and the like, and being simultaneously emotionally neglected and closed off by those around you.
Please don't be mad if I don't smell that gold right.
It harkens back to the higher points of her debut album, tracks like Soap and Pity Party, where she really lets herself crawl into a precise and personal subject matter. It is, unfortunately, more celebrity bullshit, but it's the best written of the 4 we've gotten so far. Like, it's the second half that I was yearning for from Show and Tell, that plea for emotional vulnerability from a crowd she fears abandonment from in turn, and this serves to make the track feel at least a little more universal than just another song whinging about being a celebrity. The problem is, well, I'm not going to leave it unspoken any longer. This is the 7th or so track that has sounded exactly like this. It's weird. Crybaby wasn't nearly this homogenous, but K12 just keeps throwing these identical down-tempo vibes playlist-ass beats at you.
Window and this kid was kissing Brandon. It's your mama's preaching to make sure it's in the light from I'm fishing.
It's a little different from the others, I guess. There's belt-tightening noises in this one. If you listen closely, you can hear someone shushing you. I'm already forgetting this song exists again. And now, Melanie Martinez will be writing a statement piece about statutory rape.
The teacher giving his eyes to a student.
Alright, just so we're perfectly clear, I am not offended that Melanie Martinez dared to speak about a difficult topic. It's just, rape isn't something you make one scene in your movie about. Rape is something you make the whole movie about. Rape should sink into the middle of a story and contort its surroundings like it's a black hole. In Teacher's Pet, we get the opposite of this. It's a pocket dimension where Angelita is seduced by a teacher we've never seen before and falls victim to a rape allegory, a pocket dimension we abruptly exit after the song is over. It is eminently consequenceless, outside of the direct, visceral stakes of the scenario. The final shot is Angelita gutting her rapist with a knife. We cut to black, and they're lighting a fucking blunt. This is clearly a very dire consequence of the adaptation troubles you run into when you build a film around an album. Like, I can imagine if Melanie was aiming to create this grab bag of relevant issues to tackle, then she'd naturally end up with exactly one track about any given subject matter. The problem arises when this is translated to the screen, and every track is its own little story event. A film can't cohesively comment on both eating disorders and statutory rape, with only one down-tempo song I've already forgotten separating them. Both are compromised. Angelita, she doesn't care. Fleur, she has 2 more lines after her song and then she's done. We are bearing witness to a visual album flying too close to the sun of narrative stakes, and we can only watch as she falls into the sea. Okay, but if we look at this through the lens of it being just a visual album with ambitions, what do I think of this as an isolated audiovisual sequence? Well, the biggest problem is, again, that Melanie Martinez can't express any emotions besides snarky bemusement.
Teacher's pet, if I'm so special, why am I secret? Yeah, why the fuck is that?
Just like in Strawberry Shortcake, she tries to have it both ways. Melanie wants to play the naive victim, caught in the rush of affection and control that groomers use to trap their targets, and in small moments it seems like she's almost hitting it, but she can't fucking help herself.
I know I'm young, but
Please don't clap back at the rapist.
Stop calling me bunny, I won't hop and you don't own me.
This hurts to watch. It's embarrassing. The way she just pulls through this sober depiction of grooming into girl boss platitudes without a hitch, seemingly without understanding the public execution by guillotine that she's giving to the song Stakes. There's a really subtle bit of wordplay on the bridge, the turnaround from she wants to set you on fire to fuck it, she'll still give you a call and a lighter. Each line mundane on its own, yet put together to form a bigger picture of what she intends to do with that lighter. But what is it for? It's just another sassy platitude, an edgy sitcom bit. Is this empowering? Is it empowering to have your trauma recounted in the most inconsequential tone possible? A lot of people criticize Melanie Martinez for supposedly fetishizing or glorifying trauma, and I've had a bit of trouble trying to pin down what they mean by that. What separates depiction from glorification? I don't think it's just that Melanie isn't writing from experience. A good enough writer could get away with it. Well, I think I have the answer right here. It's a song about grooming with none of the pain, where the victim holds all of the cards and never expresses damage. It's trauma without the trauma. Am I offended by this? Politically, sure, I'm offended that she's made light of such a huge and dark topic, but I'm mostly offended aesthetically. Like, as an artist and songwriter who has experienced something in the same ballpark as what is depicted here, I'm offended at the lack of will to actually express anything with this track. I'm offended that the endless well of emotions that a grooming victim experiences was used as inspiration for something so devastatingly flat. Melanie Martinez wants to be the kind of artist who writes about important subjects, but she can't honestly depict pain, which is ironic considering the reputation she's cooked up, but she just can't. It's not in her palette. In lieu of this, she settles for a cowardly facsimile of pain that exists without any need for vulnerability. The fact of the matter is that Melanie Martinez can't kill her creative ego. She has no humility, no confidence. But Avery, you are probably shouting at your screen at this very moment, what sound effects did she use for this track? That's a good question. Melanie, what's the sound effect of choice for Teacher's Pet? You sure? That's what you're going with? Okay. High School Sweethearts is Dear Future Husband, Hot Topic edition.
Step one, you must accept that I'm with the loud my mind step.
All right, this is the worst film yet created. I can't accept the staggering incoherence of this project. None of these sequences are aware of the sequences that immediately surround them. Why are we being treated to Melanie's Tinder profile, now of all times, at the penultimate song, not 1 minute after Angelina gores the man who groomed her? Why is any of this the way that it is? I'm so frustrated. I feel like all the pieces are there. She's written music before that is at the very least coherently relatable. I even want to defend it at points because I believe it really could have worked. And yet...
If you can't handle the choking, the biting, the loving, the smothering until you can't handle it no more.
Melanie, if your partner was at any point no longer able to handle the choking, biting, loving, and or smothering, they would, by implication, have handled it until they couldn't handle it no more. But then, at the bridge, she plays with my heart yet again. She offers a second side to this Tinder profile, an admission of her damage, the snarky yandere posturing giving way to a sincere longing. The chords in the back continue on as if the chorus should be playing, but her thoughts continue to spill over the line, revealing a dizzying mental state of combined domination and submission. Can't relate. It makes me want to consider this song as being not merely a Tinder profile she slotted into the album, but as the aftermath to everything we've been seeing up until now. We're finally getting to know how Crybaby feels about all this, getting a taste of her inner world. But it can't last, because this is a pop song and we have to end it by crowbarring the chorus in one last time.
Can we just be honest?
Please. For the love of Christ, stop almost being good. Stop providing me with these stars and teasing me with the prospect of them eventually aligning into something emotionally coherent. This is cyberbullying. At times like these, it can't hurt to defer to other more successful works so we can understand how these things function. Like, I don't know, Crybaby? That album is a legitimately cohesive concept album in a way that K-12 simply isn't. Just as I am fascinatedly rubbernecking at the complete disaster that is this film, I am in turn fixated on the tasteless yet still undeniably holistic and intentional nature of her debut. It has a fucking beginning, middle, and end. Actually, Let's take a closer look at that debut. I feel like I'm looking at this all wrong. Crybaby opens with its title track, and it's a little strange in the context of the album. It's the only one that's in second person. She's singing to her own character, essentially.
They call you crybaby, crybaby, but you don't fucking care. Crybaby, crybaby, so you laugh through your tears.
But then the bridge happens, and it's very odd.
I look at you and I see myself.
She begins to identify with her character, confides in her, and then for the final chorus, subsumes her, singing in first person where we remain for the rest of the album.
So your tears are mine. They call me crybaby, crybaby.
After the introduction of the main character and Melanie's subsequent possession of her, we're introduced to her world in piecemeal. She lives in a broken home. She has an alcoholic mother who also maybe murdered her husband. After the world is established, the following story arc is essentially just Melanie Martinez traumatizing her OC as much as possible. Except for Alphabet Boy, I don't really know what that song is doing here. She seeks a lasting relationship but can't navigate them maturely, so she's betrayed and abused further. She gets fucking kidnapped and maybe raped also. That happens. The last few songs are the most important to the story and also the worst ones. See, after everything she's been through, she's a little twisted. She's sweet, but she's psycho. She's a homewrecker who steals men from their wives. She witnesses a vision of herself succumbing to the expectations of society and deliberately turns away. And then Mad Hatter happens, an entire song that just revels in her new personality before the album closes. She's cool now, too hardened to care about anything, too cool to actually be traumatized. Mad Hatter ends with Crybaby opening her eyes, showing those iconic black contact lenses that we now know to represent her magical abilities. The story of Crybaby is, in essence, a 13-track corruption arc where we witness a fictional character slowly adopt the same bird's-eye perspective on her world as the author who created and possessed her. And this is where K-12 picks up. Crybaby has already decided that she is above the rest of her world, that she's above being hurt, that it's all a fictional playground for her. That's why she's like this. That's why she isn't even allowed to be excited to go to school for the first time. She knowingly steps into what will inevitably be the worst years of her life because she is one with the omniscient author, because she is now Melanie Martinez. She is a miracle worker. She acts with power beyond the fourth wall, but the songs aren't about her anymore. They're about someone she doesn't know, a holy being beyond her world. But, and here's where my brain starts running at 1,000 miles per hour, then she is visited by her guardian angel. Lilith comes to her in her time of need from another dimension, and when Crybaby begs to follow her, to exit her world and go back to heaven, Lilith says no. Crybaby cannot remain detached from her world. She must learn to feel pain again, to feel love again. The escape she found, adopting the worldview of God, Melanie Martinez, cannot be. So, what's the cap to all this? Well, fucking nothing, because Melanie has too much of an ego to act out a Jesus allegory. The only change that Crybaby manages to find is assembling a privileged hive mind of pouty superpowered insiders. She is an empath who remains fundamentally separate from her community. She is the son of God, but she can never be his lamb. She is an angel who can never learn to be human. High School Sweethearts is, really, exactly the song to expect at the end of this arc. She denied Lilith's call a long time ago, and we're left with this shallow, posturing husk, an insipid love song made entirely of demands, giving nothing of herself in return. Perhaps Christ never forgave his tormentors, and we are all damned to hell. Recess is alright. It's low-key, resigned, yet cautiously hopeful. It's fine. Its sole presence in the film is just playing in the background while the story tries to resolve itself in like 15 minutes, so I guess I can just focus on that. The final 15 minutes of K-12 is the point where it most resembles a movie. After 12 songs of tiptoeing around in visual album mode, merely flirting with the idea of causality and stakes, we are suddenly plunged into movie mode all at once. Let me try my best to synopsize. In various scenes past, we've been able to see Crybaby and the gang attempting to formulate an escape plan. The plan itself is poorly communicated to the audience, but from what I can tell, Crybaby is to get on the school's loudspeaker and do the psychic blast thing from Drama Club to inspire everyone attending the school dance to run to the hills, I guess. This plan is thwarted when Leo asks Crybaby out to the dance and she accepts, meaning she won't be able to... Wait, does it make a difference whether she's on a loudspeaker or in the room with the other kids? Crybaby's friends are treating her like she's completely ruined everything when she can just blast them right here, right? This isn't just a plot hole ding. This is the entire conceit of the scene. The conduit for Crybaby's singular concession to the wonderful world of character flaws, and none of it tracks. And then she's just outside the room by chance when Leo curses the entire dance hall to dance all night as revenge for killing his dad. Crybaby just happens to be on the trip to the bathroom, which allows her to single-handedly solve everything, so it didn't even fucking matter. It didn't fucking... What is this screenplay? Why did the music videos stop in order for the story to simply continue to not make any fucking sense? Why is this complete nonsense happening in lieu of a music video for Recess? What the fuck is this? Why does this exist? Why am I talking about this? Why am I still talking about this? Why am I still talking about this? There's this really old and kind of minor Adam Neely vlog that I think about a lot. It's called The Music You Hate. In it, Adam attempts to self-interrogate on the nature of virulent hatred for music, specifically the kind you only get from musicians. He posits that, perhaps, in order to elicit hatred and not merely dislike, the music needs a smaller degree of separation from the musician. And the thesis follows from observation. Rock guys hate Imagine Dragons, jazz guys hate Kenny G, and I hate Louis Zong.
One of my favorite things about chords is how you can put
Shut
different
the
chords
fuck
on
up! This theory makes very intuitive sense to me for many reasons. Like, naturally, you have a greater vocabulary by which to articulate your hatred of things that are similar to the things you make. You can see the process more clearly than the average Joe, and thus, you're privy to the way it's been corrupted. You might even, deep down, relate to it emotionally, more so than you would relate to something that you merely find irritating or uninteresting. You might see a bit of yourself in the devil. And I see myself in Melanie Martinez. She's just like me, for real. Like, I'm also a pop songwriter. I have a precise niche image. I too will occasionally overindulge in strange, detailed, uncomfortable imagery. We're both into DDLG, but I'm the only one who's brave enough to say it. My beats are sometimes icy and plucky like hers. We have strikingly similar melodic instincts. Soap is actually just a song that I can very easily see myself writing, beginning to end, especially when I was the age she was at the time. I cannot escape the conclusion that if I were in Melanie's position, I would make something not unlike K-12, and I hate most that which I cannot face within myself. If you're a fan of this thing, and you made it this far, don't be too mad. I only hate it because, well, I kind of love it too.
Love and hate are not opposites. The opposite of loving something is being indifferent to it. Because loving and hating implies that you care about it in one direction or another.
So, how does it end? Well, after Crybaby figures out how to outsmart Leo and manages to break the spell, everyone escapes, but Crybaby doesn't make it in time? Why is she on the balcony? Wait, why is her love interest up here? Never mind. This is where the film's themes finally sort of wrap up. Like, the boy reveals he's also got superpowers, and they brainstorm ways to destroy the school and escape. And eventually, they flash all the way back to that scene before Strawberry Shortcake.
Do you know how to blow spit bubbles?
What? What are you talking about?
We can trap the school. We can lift the school up in a bubble.
They can finally imagine a way out. They have felt the physical pain of this world and have learned through experience, but it is not the pain that guides them. Instead, it is a small, inconsequential moment of joy, play, friendship, blowing bubbles, literally putting the entire school in a massive spit bubble and then disintegrating it with your mind anyway. So why didn't you just do that in the first? On March 24th, 2023, Melanie Martinez killed off Crybaby. The first music video for her new album, Portals, showed Crybaby being lowered into her grave and re-emerging as this creature, representing her new image and sound going forward. The two-tone hair is gone, the age regression is gone, and she has a new stable of producers. So, what did we get in her place? On Portals, Melanie loses all of the qualities that I begrudgingly respected her for on albums previous. Her lyrics are breathing with a little more poetry and abstraction in contrast to the hammer-blunt songwriting of albums past, but she's rapidly degenerating as a vocalist and actress. I don't buy the emotion she's putting across in any song here. Her wheezing tone is more obtrusive than ever. I'm also not buying the dark fairy aesthetic. There's hardly a gesture towards surreal enchantment nor grotesque horror in the instrumentation, which is especially odd when comparing it to Crybaby's consistent use of glockenspiels and bell tones that showed different sides of themselves along that album's ups and downs. It is upsetting to me how little the music evokes this cover art. The most tragic reinvention here, though, is personal. Like, Crybaby and K-12 were albums about trauma written by someone who has, self-admittedly I might add, zero traumatic experiences to draw from. Portals is an album written by someone with one traumatic experience, and it's the experience of being cancelled. The petulant, relishing fog of defensive anxiety lays thick over the entirety of Portals, and it makes the entire album extremely unpleasant to listen to, but undeniably authentic. The pretense is gone, Crybaby is dead, and now we can only watch her dance in the afterlife, ascended above humanity, fully reincorporated with her god. Crybaby could never do what Lilith asked of her, but she got what she wanted in the end.